And we're with David Dodd, the collections manager of the Sonoma County Library. This vast network of, you got 1,000 branches now, distributed all throughout the land?
Yeah, one around every corner.
Yeah, in every shire.
Yes.
Well, how many branches are there actually?
There are 13. You could say 14 because we just opened Roseland Community Library.
Congratulations.
And so that's it's a temporary library, but it's there, it's open, so.
Yeah. What is a temporary library? Is it like,
well, it's in a temporary place.
okay.
So,
so it's going to eventually.
We hope that it will find a permanent home on the same site when the Roseland Community Center is constructed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Do you remember the bookmobile back in the day?
I wasn't here for the Sonoma County bookmobile, but I have worked on bookmobiles.
You've heard tell of the bookmobile.
Yes.
Is that like a stopgap solution to bring libraries to communities that otherwise were underserved? Or
Bookmobiles?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do they still exist?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, we contract with the Mendocino County Library for bookmobile service to our north coast of Sonoma County, which is, Gualala and places like that. They come down from Mendocino because it's a quicker trip. And provide the services. And of course, we can get all of our books to people through that bookmobile because we have an interconnected system. So it works great.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. So, collections manager, what does that actually entail?
Well,
managing the collections, I would hope.
Yes, it's not the person who knocks on your door to collect for your debts.
Your overdue book.
It's so funny because I have a LinkedIn profile, and the job offers I get are often from credit card companies for collections. So, but I ignore them. No, it's basically collection development librarian is what the title might be in most libraries, and it's the person who oversees the building of the library's collection of books, music, movies, electronic books.
And yeah, I was going to say digital archives as well.
Big thing these days.
And it's a big thing that you've been spearheading a lot with various committees and stuff like that, creating, which I've been happy to serve on occasion.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Where are we now with the relevancy of libraries in our current sort of media landscape? This is something you and I have had conversations about because we face this a lot as an institution in terms of, we provide community media access, but that's now on your phone.
Right.
What is a library?
Same here.
In the age of Google.
Same here. It's on your phone. So we'll be launching an app that will allow you to access all of your account information and search the catalog and go directly to our ebooks and our downloadable audiobooks and get them right there on your device.
That's brilliant.
Instantly. So
because that's where we use it now.
That's where we use it now.
That is great.
The environment is mobile. Not that a lot of people don't come into the actual library still. Mm-hmm. They do. We've had no perceptible diminution of library usage in physical person. In fact, it may have gone up since the internet really came on full strong because people can find you now. And they say, oh, the library has this, I'll go in and get it. So,
and the library has internet too, which is great.
And that's right, we help with the breaking down of the digital divide. It's a big role for public libraries to be the ones who say, everything's on the internet, but not everybody has the internet.
That's a very good distinction.
Yeah.
And not only is it on the internet, you're moving to the Internet of Things in a way because you now have a 3D printer at the Santa Rosa branch, which is incredible. I mean, it's
actually owned by the whole system. It was purchased and then it sort of goes around and spends a month at a time at the different branches. So it's been around in a number of different branches now, and it's a real kick to watch people interacting with it.
So let me tell you what happened to me.
What happened to you?
I live in this Victorian in Petaluma, and it's got these old light fixtures, and I managed to shatter one piece of it. I thought, what am I going to do? And I had a duplicate fixture, and I took it, and I thought, I will have this 3D scanned, and I will call David and beg him to get me on the 3D printer so I can print a replacement. Yeah. Fortunately, I found one on a cupboard, so I never got that far.
But that's a great idea. Things like that, people do stuff like that. Some little part. Have you noticed how on an expensive appliance, it's always that weak little plastic thing that breaks and that you have to spend the whole price? Well, now you could actually probably go and fabricate that weak little plastic thing and replace it.
Yeah, and you can do it at your library now, which is incredible. Right. You can print a prosthetic hand at the library now. That
would take a lot of time, and probably it's not the kind of machine we have.
Okay.
but I mean,
so my robot army, that's
the drone army's not going to happen. But the good thing is that people are seeing this as a relevant function of libraries, because it is a way to produce knowledge in the community.
Right.
And so that is, the personal mission of a librarian is to facilitate the creation of knowledge in your community. It's a very different way to think about libraries and librarianship,
right.
but it's one I've embraced because it allows me, no matter what happens in the information landscape with formats or anything else, how information is delivered, I get to stay relevant. I get to go to work every day knowing that I'm going to do something that's important to my community.
Yeah.
So,
wow. I wish I could think of the same thing. Will you help me?
Sure. We'll work on that, Daedalus. Yeah.
I just need to post it, put it on my...
It's nice to have a motto.
Yeah, no, that's good. But how did you get involved with the library racket? It's such a distinct career. I mean, you were a child once, I would imagine, and you went to a library. Did you know when you were a kid that this would be a vision for you?
No, not so much.
Yeah.
I loved reading and books, and I have fond memories of my children's librarian in my town growing up, Mrs. Quarterman.
Nice.
She was there in the Carnegie Library downtown Livermore. I grew up in Livermore.
Oh, you guys had a Carnegie Library too, just like...
We did.
Yeah.
We did. It was
nice.
in the middle of an entire city block in this park with a pond with goldfish and a fountain.
We should say these were libraries that Andrew Carnegie bestowed upon the land. We have one in Petaluma, one in Sonoma. They've since become museums and tourist bureaus. But,
right, Giltsburg, that's one.
Giltsburg, yeah, they're beautiful buildings though.
There was one in, of course, where the present Central Library in Santa Rosa stands was a Carnegie originally.
Really? Oh,
and
wow.
it was damaged in the earthquake, but continued to function as a library into the 1960s. And then they finally tore it down and built the new library that's there.
And so when you were at your Carnegie Library, and
when I was a kid,
you had no inkling that you'd actually end up in this
not so much.
Yeah.
No, but I did find myself in high school getting a job as a page at that public library, which had moved away from the Carnegie and built a new library, and so I put books away. I returned books to the shelf and put them in the right place.
How clever they call the person who touches the pages a page. Yeah.
So really,
I was a bookend, and I just had to stand there. It was
I can't feature that. So it was a great job for high school kids. So I did it, 12 hours a week. I have my framed certificate of hiring, $1.91 an hour.
I love it.
And I did that through high school, and then I went to college and majored in something completely different.
Right. Can I ask?
Yeah, I got my degree in German literature.
Yeah.
So a very relevant and useful degree there in the world. So but I do love German literature. I love all literature, and I figured German.
Has Henry Bull. I'm just making up German names.
All those German names.
But I know that you at one point on your CV you have a bit where you worked at a prison in Alameda.
Yes. That was my first job in a.
So you weren't an inmate.
Library. Was not an inmate.
Okay, John,
no.
you gotta. My producer gets this all backwards. So you did not go to prison, just to clarify.
No, but I went often.
We have to change the website. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry, David. I
got to go look at that. No, I want that. I want that snapshot of that webpage saying I was a prisoner librarian. No, I was a prison librarian.
Well, while we fix the webpage, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about this experience. We're with David Dodd, the collections manager of Sonoma County Library. Sorry. And we're back with David Dodd, the collections manager of our Sonoma County Library. We left off in the last segment talking about how you had worked in Alameda at a prison. Can we pick up where we...
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a bachelor's degree in German literature when I got out of college.
Right.
And so I was looking for a job, and I thought I might be a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the campus editor of my daily
right.
campus newspaper at Davis, and there was nothing in the journalism world for somebody without a journalism degree.
Where are we, 80s now?
We're in the early 80s.
Yeah, okay.
And so I found on a job board listing, in a physical job board, bulletin board in the Alameda County Courthouse.
Pre-Craig.
Yeah, pre-anything. A listing for a library assistant working with the jails in Alameda County. And I applied for it, and I got the job, and it was a wonderful first job. I really think every librarian should work in jails before they do anything else.
So this is prison in the 80s. What
It was mostly Santa Rita Jail, which is in Alameda County. It looks a lot like, and was in fact, an army base.
Wow.
Built as temporary quarters as an army base, but all those buildings were still standing.
Like Quonset style?
There were no Quonset huts, but there were a lot of wood frame structures that were real kind of drafty and cold.
Wow.
Concrete floors. They seemed more like chicken coops than anything else, really, now that I live in Petaluma. I know that. So we would go on a circuit rider kind of thing and visit each facility every 2 weeks, and we would walk through down the aisles of cells and hold boxes of books up to the window, and people would choose them, and then we would write down what they wanted next time we came, and we would go find those and bring them back, and it was just...
Any titles stand out that you recall?
Well, there were a lot of
Houdini.
Okay, so there were two or three categories of things we weren't allowed to bring in. Okay. One was gunsmithing,
right,
and another was locksmithing.
Nice.
So the escapism was really just escapism, and it would be Louis L'Amour, a lot of Louis L'Amour, a lot of Donald Coyne's, which are urban crime novels about the black experience, because frankly, most of the inmates were African American.
Right.
And it was a very stressful job. So the first stop each time was the holding tank.
Yeah.
And you would have...
Was stressful because of the exposure to prisoners, or?
Yeah. Right. You were under a lot of pressure to bring what they wanted.
Right.
And if you didn't have what they wanted, it was not a good scene. Not that it was ever a lot of face-to-face contact, except we did drive the bookmobile into the federal prison, and they would come on the bookmobile. This was a white-collar prison in Pleasanton.
Right.
So we'd had people like Sarah Jane Moore, and people who really were not a huge threat in terms of violence, although she did try to kill a president, I guess.
Well, yeah, technically. Yeah.
They would come on, and then we would have face-to-face contact. So those were mostly, accountants and people who had done bad things with taxes.
And what were they reading? Do you recall?
Oh, the whole gamut, everything. Yeah. And we had very sophisticated readers, all the way down to the most, street level kind of thing.
That's incredible. What a peculiar start.
Yeah. And how if you get a medical degree at a certain, I think it's anywhere in Illinois, you have to work at Cook County Hospital for a year before.
Right.
It's your dues after you get your degree. It would be great if we did that with librarianship and said, you've got to go work in a jail or a prison after you get your library degree. Because then you're ready for anything. Right. You really are.
Well, what's the life cycle for a librarian now? They study librarianship?
Yes, they study librarianship. They get a master's in library and information studies, usually.
Yeah.
And they get a degree that's accredited by the American Library Association, and then they're eligible to become a professional librarian. Now, I didn't have that degree when I started.
Right.
So I was a library assistant. I wasn't a professional librarian. And I worked in that capacity for 8 years, and then I went to library school.
Wow.
And got my master's. And then I started on the professional level of my career.
That's amazing. It's really interesting. And librarianship has changed in the job market. You don't have to work at a library with a library degree now. You could work at Google. You could work at the CIA, as a friend of mine does. That's...
You have a friend who works for the CIA?
I just totally said that out loud, didn't I? Yeah.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll show you some tricks later. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Excellent.
So in the midst of this, you've maintained a love and interest in music as both a performer, but also as a writer of music-based books. So
one band in particular. So
yeah, good point. Yeah, Van Halen, man. How did you?
It's Eddie.
Right.
It's all about Eddie. It's those fingers.
But it's the Grateful Dead.
It's the Grateful Dead.
And let's talk about how that relationship began.
Okay.
or unless it's statute of limitations hasn't passed, and then we can.
No, I was taken to a concert in Oakland in 1976 by my roommates. It was The Who, and opening was this band, the Grateful Dead, and I had read about them.
And they were the Dead at that point, not the Warlocks, or what?
Yeah, the Grateful Dead. It was 1976,
okay,
so it's like 11 years into their career. So
yeah.
it's I read Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, and I knew about this band as a legendary band, but I was really going to hear The Who,
right?
Because it was the full band. It was Keith Moon and everybody. So it was a great show, but it was a double bill.
That's
The Who and the Dead
wow.
at the Oakland Coliseum outdoors. So I went, and by the end of that concert, I was a Deadhead because I felt the music spoke to me in a way that no other music ever had. So,
was it an enhanced experience, or
not at all?
Okay, just messing with you.
And I wouldn't answer if it were.
and I shouldn't have asked. But,
no.
So that became sort of a lifelong love affair with the band.
Still going on,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, I went to see the most recent iteration, Dead and Company, on December 28th. I took my daughter, who's 19.
That's great.
So that was really fun.
That's pretty cool.
It was great to be able to share. And somewhere in there, I started applying my librarianship skills to the body of lyrics.
Good thing you picked the lyrics, because those are at least fairly finite versus all the bazillion recordings. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a distinct body of work, and they have a couple of standard lyricists that they use, Robert Hunter being foremost, and then John Perry Barlow, who also has other ties into my career in other ways. So I started looking up the references within the lyrics, things that were obscure that I wanted to know about. They reference this person named Crazy Otto in one song. I'm like, who's Crazy Otto? Because clearly these are real people. They weren't just making up names out of thin air. So I would look him up, and he turns out to be this ragtime piano player from the 1950s.
So you're actually tracking down historic, like footnotes, so to speak, or
it's all footnotes,
annotated.
right?
But what about? I mean, have you had to like ask the band? Like, do you ever get to a point where like, okay, well, who's this guy? And it was actually
not
an
with
interior.
them.
Okay.
No. It's all been as a researcher. And in the early days, you remember card catalogs?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So at one point we got rid of the card catalog, but then we had all these cards.
Right.
So I would use these old card catalogs and make as index cards.
That's great.
And I had like a shoebox full of references that I would just run across, like who is this Sheriff Benson in this one song? Well, he turns out to be a famous sheriff from Houston who quelled these riots in Houston in like 1910.
Wow.
And so I would have a little footnote and say, where did this come from, and a citation and everything. And then
you wrote this in the age of the internet, right?
No, this was all pre-internet. So this was all stuff I was doing on index cards.
Well, I know
by
that.
hand.
I know that, but like your research was also then just wow.
In books around the library. I would track stuff down. So, and that really honed my skills actually as a reference librarian. If you could go find some obscure reference, and I mean that's what's interesting about my job. You know? So we can find out anything.
Let's come back to this in a second here with David Dodd, the collections manager of Sonoma County's library. We'll be right back. And we're back with David Dodd, the collections manager of Sonoma County Library. We were talking about your book, sort of annotating Grateful Dead lyrics, and we just got to a juncture where something was about to happen.
Yeah, so I did this by hand for a long time, and then along came the World Wide Web.
Kabam.
1994 or so, where I was working in Colorado, and I thought, well, this is perfect for the web.
Yeah.
And no one at that point had annotated a literary text using the web with hyperlinks and so on. So I started doing that. And I got permission from the band to use full text of the lyrics.
Beautiful.
And put it all up. And then I started getting 20, 30 emails a day from people with, oh, did you know this? Did you know that? And the thing just grew exponentially all of a sudden.
Like a mushroom. That's amazing. Yeah.
And 10 years later, we published it in print.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's great. It's great. And it's still in print.
It's still in print. Just came out in a new version this past fall.
What's the title so we can find it?
It's the complete annotated Grateful Dead lyrics.
Beautiful. It's interesting how you were able to see the sort of explosion of the web and its relative disruption in a library context in real time as a researcher, as a writer, all that. What do you think, if you could prognosticate for us, like what's next? What's going to happen?
Well, all information everywhere is what's happening.
Right.
And it already, so the question becomes, how do you deal with the overwhelm? How do you wade through this immense sort of river of information that's coming at us all the time? And what are you interested in? And how do you avoid getting in such a little filter bubble that you will never know anything beyond what you're interested in? You can go very deep, very quickly into anything now.
Yeah.
But will you have a broad horizon? So the library has always made it a point, as we say, to have something in it to offend everybody. So if you can't find something in the library that you disagree with, then we're not doing our job, because we represent all points of view, all knowledge, and we bring that together. And our real skill is in classifying and organizing and making accessible and preserving that information.
Making a taxonomy.
Taxonomy is a big part of it. So that's still all relevant. We are the ones who know how to do that better than, I mean, Google, there's a saying, Google will bring you 4 million answers and the librarian will bring you the one that matters.
Right.
And Neil Gaiman. So, and I love it that he said that, because it really gets at what's the difference between just, whoa, here's all the information, and, oh, here's actually what will answer your question.
And the reference desk still exists, and I can still call and say, I have a question.
Or you can email, or you can go online and do,
Fair enough, And there is actually a human who will assist and help curate or filter out and curate the information that they bring back to me that in a way that's meaningful to me versus the front page of Google. Which
that's
no
the
one
hope. The hope is that we will get at the thing that will fill your information need.
I love this idea that you're not doing your job if somebody's not being offended. I mean, really, because it's a beautiful and very like patriotic concept, really.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
How do you deal with people who do get offended, by certain parts of your collection?
Well, I use that that example. I say, well, the library is a foundation of democracy. We are the place where you can make an informed decision and get all points of view on any topic. So we exist really to make democracy possible, to inform the public so they can vote as they want. So I'll start with that, but really, people mostly just want to be heard about how offensive it is that you have a book on Satanism,
right,
or whatever, in your library. And we do have a formal process for if there's a complaint about a book, and we respond to the patron and make sure that everything is heard, that they understand why the item is in the collection. People.
So it sounds like you spend a lot of time defending material.
Not a lot.
Okay, you've spent time defending material on occasion.
Sure have.
Have you ever actually removed material?
I've not.
Would you?
It's hard to imagine a situation where I would. One of my early mentors in jails was a guy named Larry Duckwall, a librarian I love, and I was this young kid out of college, and he said to me on the way to the jail one day, he said, so there's this book, this mythical book about, hypothetical book about someone who's a rapist and a murderer, and it's all from his point of view, and it's just awful, and it tells you how to make guns and bombs, and
right.
What do you think about a book like that? Should be in the library? And I said, I don't know, it doesn't sound like it should probably be in the library. And he said, well, it should be in the library, and you know why? Because it's a book. And I'm like, oh, so that's been my foundational starting point with everything. If it's been brought into being by a human being and published in some way, it has some inherent worth.
Very interesting.
And all people have inherent worth.
Yeah, and this has come up recently, of course, with the I guess republication of Mein Kampf, right?
Right. Which has never been absent from American libraries. It was very interesting to me to read those articles and find out that it had been banned in Germany.
I didn't realize that either.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so it's great that it's coming back out. I mean, if you cannot read your history,
right,
and if you cannot read the ravings of this lunatic, which are amazing to read. I mean, if you ever picked up Mein Kampf, it's intense.
I haven't, but the idea is you're doomed to repeat history if you don't know history. Yeah.
Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it.
So that's history, the future, right? Two questions. Bad stuff in the future of libraries, good stuff in the future of libraries. What's the bad stuff first?
Well, bad stuff is the ongoing challenges, the de facto censorship of shrinking budgets.
Right.
So in California, we have a situation where libraries and other public institutions have been underfunded and losing funding year over year in real buying power terms since the passage of Proposition 13.
Yeah, but to qualify it in terms of censorship, de facto censorship.
I think of it that way.
That's what it is, though. That's what it would be.
It's an intellectual freedom issue for me. I mean,
it's a great way to frame it.
I really want that. So that point of view to be out there.
That's a good
it's
one.
not just we need more money for something. We need it for our democracy. So, so that's one thing that isn't happening now that's hard. It's not that we don't have a book budget. We have a healthy book budget in the Sonoma County Library. It's 10% of our overall budget.
Right.
And we are able to buy new books, and don't get the idea that we're not buying stuff. And then the good thing that could happen is we could actually see a turnaround and an embrace of the meaning of libraries in Sonoma County and elsewhere over the next decade, and we could expand in so many different directions. We could have maker spaces, we could have educational classes for kids, we could have a broader approach to early literacy, we could have literacy of all kinds in the library, digital literacy, financial literacy,
media literacy.
Media literacy.
We should merge. I always say,
I'm still for that.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out. And one thing we saw, 2007, 2008, with the big crash and all that, was that a lot of libraries became de facto office spaces and almost hub spaces for entrepreneurs.
We are. Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
I mean, people come in every day, and people write books in libraries. People, research inventions in libraries. People invent games, video games in libraries. People will do whatever's available to be done as long as we provide that ability to create that knowledge.
I love it. David Dodd, Collections Manager of Sonoma County Library. Thank you so much for coming. Come back.
Hey,
come back, please.
I'd like to.
Yeah, I hope you do. Yeah.
Thanks, Daedalus.
Yeah. Talk soon. Yeah.
All right.